Well, it can't be another year at PAX East without seeing Jools Watsham here from Renegade Kid. And now we're actually quite far from his booth because of the absolute noise that's happening in there. But it's good to be out here. It's nice to see you again in Boston.
Yeah, it's good to see you, man. It's very noisy in there. It's crazy.
Yeah, the last year has been crazy. I mean, you released Mutant Mudds on PlayStation Network and Steam, and you're bringing out the next update for Mutant Mudds, and you got a few other games that we can talk about, and a Kickstarter campaign on top of that. Yep. Now, Mutant Mudds on 3DS is getting an update soon to get those ghost levels that were introduced in Mutant Mudds Deluxe, but it was using a new engine, so how was the process of getting those new levels into the 3DS version?
It was really a technical challenge for like Matthew Gambrell, the programmer. It's really, he literally had to port the entire game over to the new engine, you know? And then we, played through them all to make sure they worked, because the smaller screen size compared to the Wii U, make sure the 3D depth was all set up and all working. So really, it was more of a challenge from a technical point of view, getting the whole game running again, and then just us playtesting it to make sure, it's all good.
Now, one thing I heard was that the engine that you're using for Mutant Mudds is also the same that you use in all of your 3D games on the 3DS. Is that correct?
The new engine, yeah. So in the past, we had a 3D engine that did, ATV and stuff like that. Then we had the Mudds engine, the 2D engine. Now we have a brand new, shiny new engine that is primarily was built for Treasurenauts, and then we kind of folded the Moon Chronicles stuff into that. So now it's an all-encompassing, powerful, mega engine, 3D and 2D. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. And it's much more optimized, and that's why we had to move Mudds over there for the ghost levels, because there's a lot of alpha transparency and crazy crap going on, and it just wouldn't run on the old engine as well. So we had to optimize it and make it work.
Now with Mutant Mudds finally getting this final update, and it's 3DS fully updated, you've released on pretty much every platform there is up to this point, where do you see the Mutant Mudds franchise going?
I mean, Mutant Mudds 2 is definitely going to happen. I think we've been talking about that for a long time now. Yeah. I think we're pretty much done messing with Mutant Mudds 1, I think, at this point. I don't think we're going to add anything more to that, but don't hold me to that. We may still do that. Yeah, Mudds 2 will be the next focus. I mean, currently we're focusing on Treasurenauts, getting that finished up, and then the next thing will be Mudds 2. I mean, we've got lots of really cool ideas for that, so that will be the next, the next big focus in the Mudds franchise.
Now, moving from Mudds to Moon, what inspired you to create the original Moon back on the DS in, 2009?
It came out in 2009, so we're making it in 2008. The inspiration for that, I mean, both Greg and I are big fans of just sci-fi, when it comes from, Star Trek to Alien. I mean, the whole spectrum, It was just a good opportunity for us to kind of get in there, but still kind of have that tension of the story, the narrative, what's going on, and that sense of isolation. And obviously a big inspiration was Metroid from the gameplay kind of, or level design kind of aspect. Really exciting to get back to that now. It's like 5 years later, so it's cool to dig into that and kind of put some spit and polish on it, I mean, the 3DS is so powerful. From day one when we decided to move Moon over to the 3DS, that was just last year that we made that decision. In the middle of last year, we're like, hey, we can do this, that'd be awesome. The number one thing was it needs to run at 60 frames a second. I mean, it has to. It'd be embarrassing if it didn't, right? It comes out on the DS at 60 frames, and if we didn't do it on the 3DS, you'd be like, we might as well hang up now. So, but that's a significant challenge to have it run at 60 frames with 3D on. Because when 3D is on, it's processing twice as much data as it was before. So we're like, okay, well, we're definitely going to do it. And if it ends up just looking like a DS game, but running in 3D, that's okay. That's what we'll do. But thankfully, it doesn't look like that. Thankfully, it looks like a really badass 3DS game. And I think, a lot of that is because of the technology. From a programming point of view, they added a lot of, texture filtering and just different effects, specularity, stuff like that. Greg, our art director, he's added higher res textures, had to apply the specularity and the shininess and all that kind of fun stuff. So just from all of that effort, it's really come together and looks so good. And now what's cool is if you turn the 3D off, then anti-aliasing turns on, which looks amazing. So for those 2DS owners, get a little bonus there, get a little bit of anti-aliasing. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Now this is season 1, is essentially the recreation of Moon in the form of Moon Chronicles. How is the game going to be split up in its episodes? Do you know, have specific points? Do you know you're going to be able to separate it, or are you going to leave it at cliffhangers each time, or what?
Yeah. And we've already determined what's going to make up each episode. So we're taking the original, Moon, the DS, splitting it into 4 separate episodes. They absolutely end on cliffhangers because we like that. We like to be the audience of that, and we like to produce that. I think it's fun, it's interesting, it's agonizingly fun. like for example, episode 1, you reveal a new thing and you go down there and then it ends and you're like, no, you're like, what happens next? So it's pretty cool. So there's about 2 hours in each episode, and then there's the VR missions. Yeah, so, and it's interesting, like, so we're gonna have you know, the first episode will come out, and I think it's 4 or 5 chapters that are in that one episode, and then you have the 5th or 6th chapter slot is the VR mission that you can unlock from playing the first episode. It's interesting because the content kind of varies actually from episode to episode. So even though the first installment that you buy is the most expensive and the other episodes are much lower in price, that isn't an indication of the value or even the content in each episode. It's interesting. I think it's episode 3 or 4 is much bigger than episode 1, but it'll be much cheaper. Just because that's the way the story just felt like it should be that way, you know? Yeah, so it works out well. And that will lead really nicely to then season 2, segue, hopefully that will be next year if the first season does well. And that'll be awesome, because then we'll really be able to tailor that episode experience. Having said that, the first game actually does split up really well into episodes, which is good. We kind of, you know, designed it with that in mind anyway, kind of, when we did the first game, because it had its own kind of chapters within it. But we're really excited to explore the universe again, because that's what we've been wanting to do for 5 years. We released Moon. We designed it to do Moon 2. I mean, it ends on a cliffhanger, and it's kind of anyway. So we're like, hey, we can do Moon 2, and we've been wanting to do this for 5 years. So when we finally realized that, hey, we get the rights back, you know, last January, we're like, oh, cool. So that's when we started working towards making this version as a launching pad, pun intended, for the second season, so we can continue the story. So for us, it's kind of our Star Trek, it's our Battlestar Galactica.
What can you tell us about the second season? Is there anything like even a little little sentence or blurb that can make us curious as to what the second season might be able to provide us?
Well, what's fun is, I won't say too much about the first game for those who haven't played it. I don't want to give much away. But what's fun is, obviously from the title of the game, it has something to do with the moon, right? And there's some bad stuff going on in there and stuff. And at the end of the first season, you know, you kind of get a sense of having corrected that wrong, but then you get an indication of, or have I? You know, there's something like, oh, what's that? And the cool thing, that really opens up something. So when you come back to Earth, you know, lots of things could happen. You know, it really, I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but just for people's minds to kind of run, you know, it's really now the human race has now entered the galaxy. It's beyond the moon. It's beyond, you know, what we know today as a human race. We can get to the moon, great. Or we can send a robot to Mars, that's awesome. But in this game, it's kind of like now the human race is aware of other life out there, which they weren't aware of before that, well, apart from Roswell. But now have access to technology that can allow them to explore the galaxy, the universe. So that's like, you know, what does that mean? Does that mean you go back to Earth? Does that mean Earth is going to be attacked by alien races? Does that mean Earth's going to make alliances with alien races? There's a whole, you know, network of things that can happen. There's a lot of potential. So I'm not going to give anything away, but there's a load of stuff that could happen, which gets us super excited.
So, moving the exact opposite from dark and mysterious to treasure hunting and colorful in colors. So, what is the player's goal in Treasurenauts in the end? Get rich?
Right. So there's 2 modes. The first mode's pretty hardcore. It's you got 2 hours, get $1 million worth of treasure, go. That's it. And if you turn it off, your progress is not saved. So it's literally a one sitting kind of dealio. And that's actually how the game was originally designed. But I don't think that's... Some people are just going to hate that mode. It's simple as that. It's going to be like, no. So we have incorporated a different mode, which has actually increased the scope of the game now, where in more traditional, more modern traditional, where you're like, you know what, I'm going to take my time, I'm going to beat a level, it will save my progress, I can turn it off, I can come back, I'll take my time and go through this game. But to support that, you need a bigger game. You know, you can't just have the small game that it was going to be. Because you can take your time and go through it. So it's increased the game a lot. So there's those 2 main modes. The second mode, where you can take your time, it's more about getting to the end of the game, where there's a special mysterious kind of idol that you need to get to, very Indiana Jones style. But the number of treasure you get on the way, it's really just a bonus. It's not really as crucial to the overall game like the other mode is. So it's more about the journey and enjoying it, how much stuff you can get along the way. The other really cool factor about the game, though, is the two-player. It will support download play, so if you have a copy of the game, I don't, no worries, we can play together, that's cool. And that's really cool, because there's a Metroid-esque element to the game, where as a one-player, I may play the first beach levels, see the branch off to the forest level, go, oh cool, go on the forest level, oh, I don't have the double jump yet, I can't get up there, bummer. So I have to go and beat the mama crab, get the double jump, come back there, go up there, cool. Which would be really exciting for the one player, but if you're playing two-player, I can jump on your head, sweet! I can jump up there, you can warp to me, and we can get around the level, circumventing that, and kind of sequence break it in a way, which is just fun. It kind of gets into the exploration, mischievous kind of, we can break this game, we can get through it any way we want. So that's really cool. I think that's going to be really neat. And you can both go off and collect treasure at your own rate, so you can get twice as much treasure as you could as a one player. There are certain doors you can only unlock with two of you standing on little pressure plates that will sink them down. So I think it's going to be cool. I mean, it's got a lot of angles that the player can come at it, whether it be one player, two player, co-op, whatever. So yeah, so I'm really excited about it. It's really different than Mudds in that way. And even in the core gameplay, it just feels different. He moves faster, he jumps higher. Even though Max is in there, suddenly he can run faster and move higher or whatever. But it has a really different feel. And the levels are much more kind of smaller, tighter, kind of labyrinth kind of levels, kind of more square. It's, again, kind of to have exploration. We're not quite sure where to go and kind of move around. And I think that kind of just fuels that feeling of like, where am I? I'm going to figure out this place and kind of see what treasure I can find and stuff. So yeah, I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Mutant Mudds, because I was actually going to ask. This game is it comes right after Mutant Mudds in terms of development. At least from my perspective, this is what happened. Was there something in Mutant Mudds development that made you say, you know what, let's make a game about collecting treasure, or was it something else that inspired the creation of Treasurenauts?
What's weird is, weirdly enough, and this has never happened for another game, is actually I think the name of the game was the first thing that was thought of. It was like Treasurenauts. That's a fun name. And it's like, that isn't taken yet? Weird. .com. I'm like, oh, I'll take that then. And then we applied for the trademark. And people was like, aha, what's that? Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favorite movie. So I've always been inspired by that. I love that movie. I just love the whole concept of that. And I think, most guys do. Most people do. It just has that sense of adventure, exploration, mystery, dread. It has the whole thing wrapped up in one. So that's always been inspiration for me in many different ways. So I think, when the idea of Treasurenauts came up, it's like, oh, that's kind of a natural, has a natural relationship with the whole Indiana Jones type thing, and then it's Spelunky, and there's a lot of inspiration that kind of came into it, and it's slowly formed. And as with every good game, I think, it started with the player package. Let's just mess around with this guy. Let's see what we can do. And we made him move twice as fast as Max, jump twice as high, and just go to the extremes and see how that feels, and can we make a game from that, and what does that mean to the screen size, and where the platform is going to be placed because of that, and can this make a game? And we kind of went from there, and it kind of organically kind of grew. So it was more of a kind of a messing around, a really unorthodox, strange way of making it, but it really came together. And then it was like, oh, okay, now we need to get serious and figure out what this game is about. And that's when the treasure came about, and Matthew, the programmer who also does all of our 2D stuff, did Mutant Mudds and did Bomb Monkey, figured out a way to get all of the treasure. I think we can have up to 1,000 individual treasure pieces in one level, which is amazing. They can all bounce around and do stuff, and that was really important. So once he'd figured that out from a technical point of view, it was like, oh great, we can have treasure littered on every surface. Because to me, that's, if we're going to do it, let's do that. Let's just have treasure everywhere, literally on every surface. So then when you revisit the level, you know where you've been by the absence of the treasure. But that's a big undertaking. You have to display a lot of treasure to do that. So that was a big technical hurdle. And once you cracked that, we're like, all right, great, let's go. And and it kind of grew from there.
So both Moon Chronicles and Treasurenauts are coming out within the next few months for the 3DS eShop. And like Mutant Mudds, if the games do well enough, are you considering moving them to other platforms afterwards, or do you think they're maybe more exclusive to the 3DS in terms of what their scope is?
I think the first thing I'd do, if both of them are really successful, I think I'll probably get a Ferrari, and then maybe a Lamborghini, and maybe a Lotus. No, I wouldn't do that.
A Porsche, not a Lamborghini.
Sorry, yes, sorry. What was I thinking? Maybe a BMW 5 Series. That'd be pretty cool. That'd be good. But no, if they do well, yeah, no, we'd love to. I mean, that's the thing. Like with Mudds and like we've done in the past, we kind of. It's really nice to focus on one platform if you can. There's a lot of benefit and excitement from a team and the audience from doing that. Treasurenauts, for example, we are going to do 3DS and Steam at the same time. I don't know if we've officially announced that, but we've mentioned, it's not a secret, we have mentioned that. Because we can, and that's cool, you know? It's like, you know, this will be the true test if the Steam audience gives a crap about our games. You know, because we put Mudds on there, and as you may know, the journey to get on Steam was an absolute disaster, a nightmare. I think we've finally have gotten through that problem, and now Treasurenauts is already approved for Steam. We can already release it on Steam. We don't have to go through Greenlight, none of that. We didn't really get a good test of that audience with Mudds because it was an old game. It was like 2 years old at that point. It's not a great test, you know, of a market. They feel like they've got a second-hand game kind of thing. You know, that's cool. So we're like, you know what, Mudds, Treasurenauts, let's get it on 3DS and Steam at the same time. Really kind of strange choices, but I think it makes sense in some weird way. So yes, we're going to do that for sure. And if they do well, yeah, we'd love to bring it to Vita and other platforms, definitely. You know, Wii U would be a great fit, especially multiplayer on one, you know, one on the gamepad, one on the TV would be awesome. So yeah, definitely. With Moon Chronicles, that's definitely very tailored to the 3DS right now. Put a lot of effort into making it sing on that machine. So obviously, if it does really well, not only does that say to us, great, we'll definitely do Season 2 and beyond. But man, we would love to do like a crazy high-res version of that for the Wii U or whatever. That'd be amazing. We would love to do that. But that would take a lot of cash. Because we would want to do it right. You know, we'd like, you know, you have the corridors and stuff in Moon, which are relatively simple as far as polygons to make them work on the handheld. But you'd want to rebuild that completely in geometry, have different specularity and bump maps and all crazy cool stuff to make it like, whoa, like Dead Space kind of quality, like wow. You know, and that's a lot of work. We would love to do that, but that would mean that we've really hit the jackpot somewhere to do that.
After the
you do another Kickstarter, maybe, I don't know.
After the Lamborghini.